Welcome to everybody this evening for this. This is a special talk, actually, and I'm going to do a survey in a minute. It's actually part of a series of talks and guided meditations. Tonight is a guided meditation for the celebrating Ajahn Brahm's 50th anniversary of his higher ordination or bhikkhu ordination. So this is it's actually on the 5th of December that we are doing a series of teachings and guided meditations to honour Ajahn Brahm. And having said that, I'll just say that the title for this evening is, and I'll do a survey in a minute, Ajahn Brahm, our spiritual friend. Ajahn Brahm, our spiritual friend. Now, how many people know Ajahn Brahm here or have never heard of him? Is there anybody here that's never heard of him? I thought, yeah, I wondered. I thought this could be the occasion. Could happen, because, but really a spiritual friend doesn't have to be Ajahn Brahm. Particularly it could be other teachers. And all of us have spiritual friends of different from that support our spiritual life. They may be spiritual teachers. They may be even grandparents or teachers that we had at school. Many different people can be a spiritual friend for us. And of course, a spiritual friend is focusing us on the inner life. All of us are looking out at the world a lot. That's our main focus, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. But a spiritual friend is someone who talks about things that are meaningful, that go to the heart, that are things to do with the mind, developing good qualities. And so that's what Ajahn Brahm, he's quite a famous teacher, even though you may not have heard of him, and he's been a Buddhist monk, a fully ordained Buddhist monk, 50 years. He trained in Thailand with a very famous teacher, meditation master, we usually say, Ajahn Chah, who, even though a simple villager really from northeast Thailand, the wisdom, wow, incredible. And Ajahn Brahm, our teacher, he was actually I was going to say Oxford, but it's a Cambridge graduate in theoretical physics. And he said, he learnt so much from this simple villager from the northeast of Thailand, so much deep wisdom about life. And so this is very important to see that a spiritual friend is focusing us, encouraging us to develop really good qualities, to develop the mind, develop the meditation, develop wisdom. So this is part of what this evening will focus on. And of course, the Buddha was always, he mentions quite often, that we should check up on our spiritual friends to make sure they're worthy of being our spiritual friends, or kalyana mitta. This is the word we use from the Buddhist language, the language used possibly by the Buddha, but certainly the scriptures were written down in. So there we are. And the Buddha mentions that really we only can tell the caliber, the quality of a person by knowing them for a long time. And I can say, I qualify. I've known Ajahn Brahm since 1983, so that's 41 years. I've seen his transformation from a very thin monk to much more substantial monk. Some would say chubby. He even says that you can call me his roundness. So this is what is a spiritual friend? In the language of the Buddha, a spiritual friend actually was meant, what the Buddha used was a good friend. But in English it's a bit ambivalent. A good friend can be somebody that you hang out with at the pub or shares your hobbies or interests. But really what he's pointing to, the Buddha is pointing to, is a good friend is someone who's got very good qualities, very virtuous, good person in themselves, and also has wisdom and other qualities that they can encourage us to develop. So this is what a Kalyanamitta is. And often in Buddhism, some traditions in Buddhism, you find that the spiritual friend, and this is what the Buddha called himself, a spiritual friend, but in some traditions you see, and in the Indian tradition, of course, the guru. And a spiritual friend is not a guru. The Buddha would never have agreed with that one. And it's not a person that we give total obedience to and love, devotion and surrender. I remember that those words from my youth, actually. And it's not something we blindly believe in, because Buddhism is a teaching about wisdom, about understanding, and it has to be our wisdom. We can use the Buddha's wisdom to focus us, to develop our own wisdom. He gives us very good pointers, but he can't do the practice for us. So this is important. And of course, a spiritual friend guides us in the spiritual practice, and they can encourage us and train. They also they teach and they train. So teaching is the side where we're inspiring, as Ajahn Sujato or Bhante Sujato says, fires one up, encourages one, and educates one. And so this is a very important aspect, the teaching to inspire, because once we've got inspiration, that gives us the joy and the energy to practice that teaching, whatever it be. And of course, they also give training too, and this is a very important point. There is a distinction between teaching and training. Training is actually working with individuals' qualities, particularly with their negative qualities, to help them let go of those qualities, to see them and then let go of them. It's not always a popular something that pleases people, but if we have respect in a teacher like Ajahn Chah, then we're willing to listen. It's only when we actually respect a person and they give us feedback, that's what we call it, isn't it? Feedback, that we can actually take that on board. Otherwise, we may think, what do they know? Who do they think they are? That sort of thing. So it's not much value. So this is a very important quality that a spiritual friend or a spiritual guide provides us with. And of course, they encourage us in so many ways. And the Buddha, he actually mentions to one time his personal attendant, personal assistant, for 25 years actually, the Buddha's life, the last 25 years. Venerable Ananda was his personal attendant, and one day he said to the Buddha that half of the spiritual life is good friends, good companionship, good comradeship. And the Buddha said, no, Ananda, no, it isn't. It is the entire spiritual life. And he said that when someone has a spiritual friend, it is to be expected that they will, that person who has the spiritual friend will develop the Buddha's path, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. But it applies to any teaching, really. Will be expected, because we get the energy, we get the encouragement, we get the, as I mentioned, inspiration and joy. That's important. And of course, the importance of a spiritual friend, why the Buddha says it is the whole of the spiritual life, is because we tend to be influenced. You hear of influencers these days on the internet, all these people that are influencers. But we tend to be very influenced, and we can take on things that others teach us. If we have confidence in them, if we have faith in them, then we can. And we are, I said yesterday in my Dhamma talk, it's probably controversial, we're very programmable devices, which is a modern way. And my teacher, Ajahn Brahm, says we are brainwashed. And it's the point of brainwashing. People say, oh no, I'm not brainwashed. The point of brainwashing is to choose good brainwashing, because some of the brainwashing on offer these days is not so good. And people can become very depressed, very anxious in the world we live in. So this is important, that the whole point of this is that we can learn so much from a spiritual guide or a spiritual friend. And it has to be, doesn't it, the lived example. I think parents know very well, don't they, that you can tell your children to do what you think they should do, but if you don't model that, they won't do it. They'll model what you model, whatever it is, whether it's, hopefully it's good qualities. But children are quite smart that way. And we are the same, actually. So it's very important to have this input from our spiritual friends. And so this is something that, and of course, the whole point of the Buddhist path is actually a path of causation. So in other words, if you get the initial cause right, then it tends to flow from that. And the initial cause is, of course, having a Buddha arise in the world and teach, and this we call the Dhamma. And that teaching for others, when they hear it and they really resonate with it, they really think, this applies to me. He's speaking to me. That's often what we can feel. Then we get this inspiration. Then we get this joy. And then faith or confidence, we call it, arises. And then we have the energy to practice what that teaching is talking about. Because what we hear in these teachings is something very relevant to our experience. The Buddha's teachings are all about life, the nature of life, the nature of reality. And so this is something, when we hear it, we get a feeling, yeah, there's something in this. There's something that resonates with us. We may not fully understand it, but we think, yeah, there is something here. And this hope, it's like a hope really too, an inspiration, that this can help me address my life, the issues in my life. Anyone here, no issues in their life? Great. If there are, no hands up. It means you don't need to be here. You've really graduated already. So that's great. No, so this is the point of a spiritual friend, really. And the Buddha says that of course, the best spiritual friend was the Buddha. And he says, by relying upon me as a good friend, Ananda, being subject to birth, aging, illness, old age, illness, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair, are freed from them. It is in this way, Ananda, that a monk or a nun who has a good friend, a good companion, or a good comrade develops and cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is sort of the introduction to what a Kalyana Mitra or a spiritual friend is. And of course we're talking about Ajahn Brahm, and there's a sutta that the Buddha gave about the 7 qualities of a friend. He doesn't say spiritual friend, but when you hear these 7 qualities, you realize it is a Kalyana Mitra, a spiritual friend. Also, I should mention Kalyana means beautiful, because someone that's a good person, has good qualities, is really beautiful, no matter how they look. There are plenty of good-looking people in the world that haven't got good qualities and therefore not really beautiful, because beauty comes from within. It doesn't. It's the outside, yeah, it can look good, modelling photos and all that sort of thing, but it's not what cuts the ice in the end. It's not what makes for happiness, not what makes for friendships and a sense of connection. So this book, this teaching is from the numerical discourses of the Buddha. The Buddha has a huge amount of teachings, just vast, 5 big volumes, really 4 specifically, and the 5th's got some direct teachings. So it's a huge amount of teachings. And this is the teachings arranged according to number. And this is, of course, the Book of the 7, so all 7 items in the list. And it's called Just a Friend, and it says, bhikkhus is monks, one should associate with a monk friend or a nun friend, I've added that, who possesses 7 qualities. One should resort to them and attend on them, even if they dismiss you. So in other words, even if they try to send you away. stick to them because they're worth sticking to. And what 7, he says. And of course I'm applying this to Ajahn Brahm. I actually heard a lovely talk by another Buddhist monk, Ajahn Jayasaro, English monk. He did the same talk. This is where I got the inspiration for Ajahn Chah, this teacher I mentioned from northeast Thailand. So the 7 qualities are that the teacher, the friend, is pleasing and agreeable. Do people think Ajahn Brahm is pleasing and agreeable? You won't be able to say, actually, but do people think that? He's incredibly so, I think. I think he's just amazing in his capacity to actually connect with people in a very good way, you know. And oftentimes we forget that the Buddha actually used this too, because when he met people, when he met monks and nuns, he would always ask them how they were and how are things going for you. So he did make these sorts of, we call them amicable conversation, you know, sort of small talk, but very, very important for making a connection with people so that they feel relaxed and that the Buddha is actually listening to, is actually interested in their well-being. So it makes that connection. And so this is actually, if we're not, if a friend is not pleasing and agreeable, a teacher is not pleasing and agreeable, do you think you'll have many, or she will have many disciples, many many followers? I doubt it. We do have some pretty daunting characters who are famous for in Buddhist tradition for being fairly strict and very tough, but it's not a quality that necessarily draws people. And I know this is one of the qualities that drew me to Ajahn Brahm. I was born in Perth. He came to Perth in 1983. He was sent from Thailand by his teacher, Ajahn Chah, to help out, establish a Buddhist centre in Perth, and also a monastery outside Perth. And that was the year I met him, in 1983. So he'd only been there about 6 months before I met him. So but always, I think everybody who knows him would say his smile really draws you. I just saw some photos that somebody put together and those suggestions for this 50th celebration. And you're just seeing the photos, I could light up, because there's something infectious about smiles, isn't there? A really good, genuine smile. There's lots of not so genuine smiles. But Ajahn Brahm, they come across as very genuine, and he gets lots of photos. I think the smile muscles must be almost worn out, actually. So he also uses a lot of humour, which is pleasing and agreeable and relaxes people to the max, he says. And he has lots of kindness, loving kindness as well. And he's very positive, and he has, I think one could safely say, oodles of charisma. He has stacks of charisma. And that's not always a good thing, is it? Because it depends on the quality of the person. But if they're a good person, charisma helps get the message across. So he is very pleasing and agreeable. And the second quality the Buddha mentions that we need in a spiritual friend or a friend is that this person is someone that is respected. And in one of the suttas of the teachings of the Buddha, actually, he mentions that honouring those worthy of respect. And of course, that respect relates to being a good person, being a moral person, and also someone like Ajahn Brahm, he's got a very good understanding, well, morality for sure, but the rules that the monks and nuns live by. So he's very versed in that. He's also famous for his meditation instructions. He's definitely, when you are with him, I feel over the years, expert. He's an expert. And he's respected for his meditation, particularly because he teaches deep meditation. We call them in the Pali language jhana. And this is very, very deep meditations, which are are very powerful, very joyful, very peaceful, and just single-minded experience. So this is something that's very, he teaches and really encourages us all to develop. And of course, in Buddhism, of course, wisdom too is a very important quality that he is respected for too. Wisdom for all of us. Our wisdom is what is the way we deal with life, really. It's not just from the book. That's not enough, actually. So he's very respected for his wisdom too. And sometimes he's, you could say, and it's mentioned about the Buddha and others too, that he is respected by those who are worthy of honour. So that's like really good people who really respect him. So that also gives him another star, doesn't it? And the third quality the Buddha mentions is being esteemed. And of course, he's very highly esteemed. He's recognised for a lot of the qualities he has, as I mentioned, about he's an expert in the rules of the monks and nuns, and he's really esteemed for his meditation. And he's also esteemed for his dedication and energy. He really has given so much. One of the qualities that Ajahn Brahm has, I think all of us could see this very easily who know him, is to serve the community. Not only the Buddhist community, the wider community. He's got some many interesting engagements, talks he's given to cancer societies, even to computer conferences. Amazing, really incredible. And so he's, in terms of his achievements, he's esteemed for building up the Buddhist Society of Western Australia, which is sort of like now worldwide sort of phenomena, and developing the monks' monastery in Western Australia, Bodhinyana Monastery, and also starting a nuns' monastery in Western Australia, and also building really a state-of-the-art meditation centre near his monastery, Jhana Grove. And he's been supporting this place, the Buddhist Society of Victoria, for many years through his teaching, but also through his supporters. They make donations here because they ask him, is there any good projects that we can support? And he is supporting us building a meditation centre at our monastery in Newbury, 90 kilometres from here. And the fourth quality, I hope I get through these, he is a speaker. I think those people who know him, do you think he's a speaker? I think he's an incredible speaker. He's really gifted, actually. And he's such a good communicator. He's very, very quick-witted. We call that patibana in the Pali, actually. And he can come out with one-liners just immediately almost, you know. And so, for instance, our meditation centre is called SOS. What a great name for it. And what does it stand for? It doesn't stand for Save Our Souls. It stands for Sanctuary of Stillness. And that's just an example, isn't it, really, of that wit, that intelligence, really, that he brings to it. And, And of course, you know, because of the humour and everything, he engages us. We listen to him. If somebody is interesting, he tells lots of stories, has many jokes, and so that really captures people. And you can see that he can teach almost any level. So people who've never heard anything about Buddhism, I remember seeing him, spending a day with him in Sri Lanka, where he was teaching on the full moon day, very big, important full moon day in Sri Lanka. And he taught all these different groups, totally differently. He taught some CEOs. He didn't use a word of Buddhism, any Buddhist terms at all. It was really lovely. And he taught some, there was a Dhamma school for children, and he was talking to them about cricket and things like that. It was just gorgeous, actually, to be with him. You know, it was really, but I thought, how amazing, you can do all this in one day. I don't know if he can do it now. That was a few years ago. And also the fifth quality of a friend, of a spiritual friend, a spiritual guide, is that they patiently endure being spoken to. it is part of life that one will be spoken to. And to be able to be patient, to take that in a good way is so important. And actual fact, when you see somebody being criticised, roundly criticised, and they react in a very good way, they don't come back with anger. They deal with it in a very, very good way, balanced way, and they don't try and dismiss the person. This is very inspiring, actually, to see someone deal well with, and you often see this is quite an art for politicians, isn't it? Dealing with the hecklers. That's quite an art. You have to be very quick on your toes. And he was very, very, very criticised, as many people know, for the supporting the the reintroduction of the revival of the higher ordination for women in the Theravada tradition. We call them bhikkhunis, and he was really criticised for that by the tradition that he belonged to, and actually ostracised for it. But in actual fact, that's turned out to be a plus, because he can give more support for those, for women practitioners, for the bhikkhuni order. And of course, to do that, you have to have qualities of strength. You have to be brave. You have to be courageous, and he is, and have that integrity that you're not going to back down when you're under pressure. So, and then the sixth quality, I think, interesting. Do people think he gives deep talks? He's amazing because he can give talks on, can you believe this, Buddhism and bananas. That's one of his best talks, that he, like for newcomers, actually, Buddhism and bananas. And it was a great talk. It was really just amazing how he could take it and turn it into this really good talk. But of course, he gives talks too, outstanding talks really, on deep meditation, these jhanas I mentioned. He gives talks on a very difficult subject for most people to understand, non-self, that this body and mind is a process, not driven by I, me and myself, driven by a process. And he talks about the larger process of our lives, which is called dependent origination in Buddhism, Paticca Samuppada. And so and stages of awakening. He teaches very deep teachings, but he's quite capable of teaching at any level. So that's great. And he can do it very clearly. And the last one, thank goodness we're getting there, he does not, a spiritual friend, a spiritual guide, does not encourage one to do what is wrong. And of course, Ajahn Brahm being an expert, as I said, in the monks' rules, also in morality in general. This is the basis for the Buddhist path, actually. All teachings, all spiritual paths, is morality. And so, and also teaching us by example. Living with him for many years I learnt a lot from just being around him. You know, he gives great talks, but he was also a great role model, example for myself and others. So this is, and one of the important things too, you know, that he also never says, and this is not always the case with teachers, he never says, my way or the highway. He allows his students to experiment. He allowed me to experiment with different meditation techniques. He didn't say, you have to practice my technique, and that's or otherwise no point in you being here. He never said that. And so he's very open, and of course that encourages people to practice, you know, to try his technique, his approach. And so this is, and he always encourages harmony in the Sangha, even though he's had a tough time over the bhikkhunis, over the female ordination. And the summary to this sutta, and I think it's lovely, that this friend is dear, respected and esteemed. It's like a verse really, a speaker and one who endures speech. They give deep talks and do not encourage one to do what is wrong. The person here in whom these qualities are found is a friend, benevolent and compassionate. Even if one is dismissed by them, one desiring a friend should resort to such a person. So really, a spiritual friend, a spiritual guide, a treasure. So we're very, very lucky if we encounter someone in our lives that really we can connect with and that can open up the spiritual life, the inner life for us. So this is very important for us. And as I said, a spiritual friend, as the Buddha said, a spiritual friend is the whole of the spiritual life. So I'd like to finish there. It's a bit long actually. And now we can have the actual guided meditation. We'll go a little later than 8:30. There we are. Yeah. And so we'll turn the lights down and we can just, if you like, to move the body to make it a bit comfortable because you've been sitting for a while. And we can close the eyes and come into the present moment, just to be here now. That's where we are always, really, but often we get dragged into the future and the past. But our lives are here now, wherever here is, wherever we are. This present moment is our life. So we can let the past and the future be. We can pick them up later, no problem. And we can become aware of how the body is. Does it need any rearranging? Are the legs comfortable, the feet comfortable? Are the hips balanced over the shoulders? Are the arms comfortable? The hands, are they comfortable in the lap or on the knees, wherever we find suitable? And does the head feel nice and balanced over the shoulders? Just checking it out. Now we can mentally relax the body like a mental massage. It's so effective for the meditation and brings the mind into the present and allows us to go deeper into the meditation, starting with the top of the head, the back of the head, sides of the head, relaxing and soothing those areas with our mind, with this kindness, this warmth, this sense of relaxation. And we can move the attention to the forehead, around the eyes, and around the mouth, the whole of the face, soothing it, relaxing it, allowing it to let go of all the attention, the looking, the speaking, all that, just to be at ease, totally at ease. And moving the attention down to the neck or around the neck, soothing and relaxing the neck. And moving down to the right shoulder, starting at the neck and moving our attention along the right shoulder, soothing it, giving the right shoulder a mental massage, so it can relax, it can let go of some of the tensions and strains of the day. Now we can bring to mind the right arm, starting at the top of the right arm and moving our attention down the right arm, all around it, down to the hand and the fingers, just soothing each area with this kindness, this warmth, friendliness and friendliness. Relaxing and soothing the right arm. And now we can bring to mind the left shoulder starting at the neck and moving our attention along the left shoulder, soothing and relaxing all the tension, all the hardness in the left shoulder, letting go of some of the burdens we accumulate there. Allowing the shoulder to droop a little, really relaxed. And now bringing to mind the left arm, starting at the top of the left arm and moving our attention down the left arm, all around it, down to the hand and the fingers, soothing, relaxing, with this warmth, with this kindness, this friendliness. And now we can bring to mind the back just below the shoulders, and we can move our attention across and down the back, covering the various areas with this warm, relaxing mental massage, giving this kindness, this relaxation to any tension, to any areas that are uncomfortable or sore or painful. And now we can bring to mind the front of the body, starting below the shoulders, and move our attention down the front of the body, across it and down, soothing and relaxing the front of the body with this warm, kind, mental massage. And now we can bring to mind the right leg, starting at the top of the right leg and moving our attention down the right leg, all around it, down to the foot and the toes, soothing and giving this warm, kind, relaxing attention to the right leg. And now we can bring to mind the left leg, starting at the top of the left leg and moving our attention down the left leg, all around it, right down to the foot and the toes, giving this soothing, relaxing attention to the left leg. And now we can be aware of the whole body just sitting here in the present moment. Nowhere we have to go, nothing we have to do for the moment. Just here with the body, with whatever we are aware of moment by moment. Sounds, the temperature of the room, temperature of the air, the voice, my voice, feelings in the body, whatever it is that we're aware of. And now we can visualize our spiritual friend we know well, particularly Ajahn Brahm, for those who know him well. You can even bring to mind when you met him in person, or we've seen him online, or seen photographs, just to bring him to mind, or bring a spiritual friend, a spiritual guide who's been really important in your life, made a difference. And then to see what that remembering, reflecting, visualizing this spiritual friend, see if a feeling comes up It may be one of loving kindness, of warmth, or a sense of joy that they're in our lives, we know them. It can be a sense of thanks, or just a uplifting inspiration. It can be a smile, remembering the humorous qualities of Ajahn Brahm and other spiritual guides or friends. Whatever it is, we can get in touch with that feeling. And it'll probably be different for all of us to some degree. Often one of the feelings that comes up for us is a profound sense of thankfulness that we have encountered this person, Ajahn Brahm or whoever it is, the spiritual friend. So thankful they are in our lives. And we can give whatever feeling we've experienced, be it for Ajahn Brahm or another spiritual friend, we can give it to the breath as it's coming in and coming out. Maybe it's breathing in this loving kindness, breathing in this thankfulness, and breathing it out, using the feeling to support our experience of the breath. Giving this to the breath, giving this feeling, this skillful, wholesome, positive emotion to the breath. And as we breathe in and breathe out, we can immerse ourselves in the breath, like we're actually inside the breath, experiencing all the qualities that we don't usually notice of the breathing, the different currents and the temperatures, all these things, the colour, as it were, of this humble breath coming in and out with this feeling of friendliness, loving kindness or thankfulness, joy, whatever it is, inspiration, breathing it in and breathing it out, and really bathing in the breath with our minds, with our hearts. And when we do this, the colour and the richness of the breath will come to mind. It will be an experience that enables us to stay with the breath, breathing in that feeling, the feeling we've experienced, and breathing it out to the world. really giving ourselves to the breath. And if the mind wanders off, we can just remember our spiritual friend, be it Ajahn Brahm or someone else, just to bring up that feeling again and bring up contact with the breath as we breathe it in and we breathe it out. as we're coming close to the end of the meditation, we can share whatever we experienced in the meditation. To begin with our spiritual friend or spiritual guide. For some of us, that will be Ajahn Brahm. Offering these, whatever we experience, maybe feelings of peace, maybe feelings of thankfulness, of joy, inspiration, or understanding. Share it, offer it to Ajahn Brahm or other spiritual guides, spiritual friends. Wishing for Ajahn Brahm, particularly for his long life, his good health, and that he will be with us for a long, long time, to be a spiritual friend to us, a guide on this path to awakening, and to have this sense of thankfulness that he or any of our spiritual friends are in our lives. Now we can expand this sharing to include everybody here in this hall, everybody online listening to or watching this live streaming, sharing whatever we experienced in the meditation. As I mentioned, more peace, more stillness, more loving kindness, more joy, whatever it was. Sharing it with all those that are here in person and online for their happiness and well-being. Now we can expand the sharing beyond these walls, beyond where those that are online are listening, to areas around wherever we are, including all the beings that are in that area, human beings, unseen beings, animals, insects, all beings, and sharing whatever wholesome, positive emotions we experienced in the meditation with them for their happiness and well-being. And we can expand this sharing further and further so that we eventually cover the whole of Australia and then the whole world and all realms of existence for all the beings, sharing these good qualities we've experienced with them for their happiness and well-being. And now we can come back to ourselves and just to reflect for a few moments on how the meditation was. What are we feeling like now? What is the feeling we have now? Is it different from how we felt at the beginning of the meditation? And what feelings came up for us in this meditation? And can we understand what brought them up for us? What was the trigger for these feelings to come up? To understand how they arise. And we can reflect on anything else we learned from this experience. And now we can have the aspiration or intention to develop these qualities we experienced, these qualities that arose from reflecting on our spiritual guide or spiritual friend, Ajahn Brahm, to develop these qualities even more in our lives, for ourselves and for others as well, keeping in mind our spiritual friend as a reminder of these qualities, good qualities, and also using these good qualities, developing them in our speech and our actions too. And we can anchor this image, this feeling of the spiritual friend, spiritual guide in our hearts, and to remember that spiritual friend at any time, particularly in times of need or pressure, stress, whatever it be, and get in touch with those good qualities, those skillful or positive emotions. And now I will ring the bell 3 times, and if you wish to come out of meditation, you're welcome to on the 3rd time, but just gradually. So, there we are. Hope people found that interesting. And particularly for those that don't know Ajahn Brahm, that could be quite, but still we can apply it to any spiritual teacher or guide in our lives. So it's very, very portable. And I was going to do a poll to see how many qualities out of those 7 qualities do you think Ajahn Brahm has? Do you think he has all 7? I'm pretty sure he does, that he is agreeable and pleasing, respected and esteemed, a speaker and one who endures speech and gives deep talks and does not encourage one to do what is wrong. And I think really any spiritual guide. That's what they should be doing for us, for the world. So thank you for listening. And I think now Langdon's going to see if you have any questions, complaints, or comments.
I am Ajahn, but first a quick few announcements.
Oh, that's right, the announcements next, yes, before people leave.
Opportunities to do some more meditation practice. So I'll start with the ones which are not online. So just for people here in Melbourne, tomorrow night there's another guided meditation with our lay teacher Sandeep at 7:30. And on this Saturday, the 30th, we're having a full day meditation retreat here given by a lay teacher, Christine Thompson, who has been a meditator for I think about 40 years or so. A long time. So looking at her biography.
Yeah.
And the retreat will run from 9:30 to 4:30 this Saturday. There are no bookings required. You just asked to arrive at 9:15 for a 9:30 start, and to please organise your own lunch. So that's this Saturday.
And the theme is going to be making sense of the senses, our sense experience.
Making sense of the senses.
Yeah, part of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching.
Thank you,
Ajahn. The
Ajahn.
whole world for us.
All are welcome. A hybrid event next. So that's the next in the series of the Friday night teachings given by Ajahn Sadaro. So there will be it's the Discover Buddhism series, and this week is week 4, Forgiving Awareness, Steps Towards Offering and Receiving Forgiveness Through Meditation. So that's 7 p.m. That'll be both here in the hall and also available to people through Zoom. So you can actually join in and ask questions and be involved in the discussion. That's Friday night. And then online only, we have, just a reminder, 4 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. each morning on Discord, and also at 7 p.m. Monday to Thursday, through Discord meditation sits. The evening sits are with a monastic. That's each right. Evening. Mm. And then finally, next week's teaching program will be with Ajahn Mudito, who'll give a talk on My Perfect Teacher, Ajahn Brahm, on the Sunday.
Part of the 50th.
And Monday night will be Ajahn Mudito again, giving a similar talk to tonight, I think, with gratitude to Ajahn Brahm.
Yeah.
So that's all the announcements. Are there any questions here in the hall? Yes.
Comments or complaints? Too much Ajahn Brahm. But it's his 50th celebration.
Hi, Ajahn.
Hello,
Sachin. When they talk about the fruits of practice, is it mainly like sort of things that can make a permanent change in the mind, rather than having like sort of the practice increasing and declining and just going normal cycles? So that is it only the sort of stream winning and those attainments that can make a permanent change, or is there other permanent changes that can happen? And then the second question is like, rather than practicing calm to get insight, how do you go about practicing more insight to get calm? And
that's big questions, really, like a whole talk. But of course, the good qualities we develop, yes, they will, at times they will be stronger or weaker until we have actually, they've become very strong in our minds. They've become quite part of us, really. And of course, you're right, it's really the first stage of enlightenment, second stage of enlightenment, third stage of enlightenment, fourth stage of enlightenment. You talk about these qualities being permanent, particularly wisdom, and also, the peace and purity of the mind, because as a person progresses towards awakening to enlightenment, they have to have that purity. That's the basis for seeing things as they truly are. We say seeing reality. So that is, when it is permanent. Yes, it can ebb and flow. Our meditation in terms of calm or stillness, and in terms of wisdom too. It can come and go. But, this is because this is a process, and the process is coming from repetition. It's actually the more we stay with practicing meditation, developing insight, keeping the precepts, keeping a moral practice, then these qualities will become stronger and stronger in us. And they will, when this body breaks down and passes away, they can go with us to a new life. So sometimes you hear people say of children, "Oh, isn't he or she an old soul?" They say, but sometimes they do seem to have brought quite a lot with them, actually, from a previous life. So this is interesting. So that is really about the practice, and of course it will develop. I remember Ajahn Brahm. He mentions that his practice is a famous Thai meditation master, that he was practicing. It was always sort of a bit ebb and flow. It was good, then it wasn't good. But then after a period, he got to a stage where it really just flowed. And I suspect this is as he was developing wisdom, developing insight, and maybe the stages of awakening, first, second, third, fourth stage. And developing, of course, a very traditional way of practice is to develop the calm of the mind, and that works for many people because our minds certainly need calming down, and especially the negative qualities in the mind, because this is actually the job of a meditator, is really to reduce the 5 hindrances of desire, so especially desire for the 5 senses, and negativity, ill will, and tired, dullness and drowsiness. This is like of the body and of the mind, where the mind really is low energy, to say the least. And then restlessness and worry, and the 5th one, doubt. Of course, there are quite a few other emotions, negative emotions, that are included in that group of 5. So that's our job. And of course we can do that. The idea of the meditation is actually to calm those down, and that does help. But they can be done through wisdom too, understanding things. And sometimes people have a tendency to go towards the wisdom side of things, looking at things in terms of the, we call 3 characteristics of life, of existence. And that they're never out of date. They're always applicable. And when we see, what are those 3? Of course, impermanence, or transitoriness, changeableness, change, isn't it? And unreliability. Because of that, we cannot be absolutely sure that things will stay that way. And we don't know when they will change, so unpredictable too. And of course, the second characteristic is, because of impermanence, is it possible to get permanent happiness? Is it possible to get perfection? And just logically, it's pretty obvious that is not on offer in reality. And of course, this is what we find in life. And I was saying in my talk yesterday, these experiences of what we call unsatisfactoriness or suffering can sometimes be big wake-up calls. Wake up to what? Reality. When we find out we have cancer, when somebody very close to us dies, when all these relationships break up, all these things can really connect us with reality again. Because by and large, we live in our own worlds, and then when reality really hits home, then we start to look into the deeper side of life. And also the third characteristic is that this body and mind, well, because of impermanence, is it possible to have a permanent I, me, and myself? Doesn't really fit. But of course, there is something here. When people hear this teaching of non-self, anatta, they think, wow, I feel like there's something here. And of course there is for each of us. There's a personality and character. But it's not permanent. It will change. So anyone who reflects on the nature of reality and actually understands that at a deeper level, yes, it'll bring peace. It will tend to bring the calm to the mind as well, and a certain degree of happiness, because a lot of our unhappiness is really, as Ajahn Brahm often says, is expecting from life what it can't give. We want it to be permanent. We want it to be always happy. We want it to be me, and of course that's not on offer actually. And so when one understands that, that will bring calm for sure. And one of my teachers, Ayakime, she was a very famous German nun. She lived in Australia actually. She used to live in northern New South Wales at one stage. A very famous teacher. And she said, a little bit of wisdom will bring a little bit of calm. A little bit of calm will bring a little bit of wisdom. We have both those aspects in the mind. We have to have both, actually. And often we hear of, calm or tranquil meditation and vipassana meditation. These are just two aspects of the mind. We have them all, and they are interrelated. So this is how, when we really understand things, you can see it in life. If we're in a difficult situation, difficult relationship, difficult situation at work, and we understand it, what happens? We sort of let go and we think, oh, that's it. And the sense of peace comes with it too. And sometimes happiness and relief, because that burden, that stress has gone. So very important, And for some people that will be easier for them, particularly if they have more active minds. And I know some monks, they prefer that approach too. So it's all possible, yeah. So thank you for that, Sachin. And sorry about that. There we are.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah.
We're almost at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, no, I know.
I just wonder, there is one question online from Nikki.
Oh, Nikki, how is she doing?
Yes.
How are you doing, Nikki? She's in
I'll read her
UK.
question.
Yeah.
Maybe to say something briefly.
Yeah.
Hi Ajahn, please could you help with fear around my health?
Yeah.
I won't go into the details, it's too long, and we have talked on Discord about it.
Yes.
I'm in hospital now. It's a kind of retreat in a way, but I'm in a lot of pain, which is making me scared.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service and reading this.
Yes. All right, Nikki. That's a very difficult situation to be in for any of us, is to have pain. And fear is very natural, because we think, is this going to get worse? Can I bear with it? And of course that is really that resistance to this pain is actually giving rise to a lot more suffering for us. So it's easy to say, to be able to accept what we're experiencing. And Nikki, I don't think that's going to be so easy, but to be able to not resist it so much is very important. And I know some teachers, there's one teacher, she had this chronic pain, she was a sufferer of that. And she actually was really, it was really stressful for her, because she couldn't get any break from it. But then she realised she only had to deal with the pain this moment, then this moment, then this moment, instead of, because as human beings we tend to think, wow, this is going to go on forever. Can I bear it? And the mind proliferates. It actually, we think, oh no, this is going to get worse and worse. When I see the kangaroos at our monastery, I think they don't think like that, because there they are standing out in the cold, the snow. Sometimes we get snow up there, and the rain, and they don't look happy. I can say that, but at least they're not thinking, I'd rather be on the Gold Coast. They're not thinking that, but we're like that, and we suffer, and that resistance to what we're experiencing. But for Nikki, I think, very important emotional first aid, particularly loving kindness and compassion, this friendliness to yourself, to be like your own mother to yourself, to be really kind to yourself, and also to the pain and to, the illness that you have, what you're experiencing. Because this is very healing when we stop resisting. It's not easy. When something or someone is very unpleasant, it's difficult to bring up that positive emotion, that positive response to it. But if you can do that, this self-soothing, really, it's self-soothing. And very important, as we had a teacher last Sunday, Ajahn Brahm, a very famous American monk, and he was emphasising, and I do too actually, what actually drives a lot of our problems is self-talk. The negative self-talk really winds us up, So Nikki, I hope this is, you may be thinking, I can't bear this, I can't bear this, I can't bear this, this is going to get worse, this is going to get worse. This sort of self-talk, won't help. And if you can change the self-talk to something very supportive of yourself, that will help. He also mentions visualization. We often have negative visualization, so to be aware of how we're imaging our experience too. So it's not an easy task, and pain and unsuffering, unpleasantness. We can say they're great teachers, but they're not easy teachers at all. One of my teachers, Ayakima, I mentioned her before, she said that these situations are our best teacher. She said most teachers in life, if you tell them, look, I'm not feeling well, I've got a headache, a terrible backache, they'll say, well, look, go home. But she said that, the suffering, these difficulties, it won't do that. It will be there. It will stay with you until we actually come to terms with it, come to be able to come to a sense of acceptance, non-resistance. Not easy, but it's really the only possibility in some situations. And when we do that, for a lot of people, and that woman I mentioned who had chronic pain, great relief from that. It greatly reduces the pain. And of course, I think Ajahn Brahm last Sunday, he talked about pain too, something that we have to accept. But it's not easy to accept things that are so unpleasant, because our natural tendency is to have aversion. And we feel it in our minds. That's a very unpleasant emotion to have in our own minds. And that resistance increases the pain and it doesn't help with the situation. So I hope those suggestions, Nikki, help with your experience in hospital now, and that allows you to come to some sort of terms with the pain and find some relief from the pain because of that acceptance. All right? So I hope you're out of hospital soon. And just to let you know, at the monastery, we are dedicating or sharing merit, this is good karma, with you for you to recover quickly and be out of hospital, free of pain, and then out of hospital. So may that be so. All right, Nikki, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. There we are. So I'd like to end there and thank you all for coming this evening and for meditating together. It's very supportive to meditate together, and hopefully you can take away something that was useful for you in the meditation this evening. And we learn by practicing more and more. So thank you very much. And for those who wish, we can bow to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha and to finish off.